The negotiations on Horizon 2020 has started with a critical review from stakeholders. I think our American stakeholder, Alan Leshner, said that this was the most comprehensive research and innovation program he'd ever seen. I think that underscores what I'm hoping that the Danish presidency can do, namely ensuring that this will not only be the world's largest collaborative research program, but also the strongest program. We are in a situation where we are challenged from competition from new markets. We are losing jobs. A lot of Europeans are unemployed. We have an economic crisis, but it's also a time where we have to decide to invest in our future, to turn the tide, to make sure that jobs are being created, that we are developing knowledge that will increase our competitiveness and will spur jobs and return itself in terms of employment and growth for all of the EU. I think the Commissioner must be very satisfied with the reception the program has gotten, ambition in terms of simplifying access to the program so that more small and medium-sized enterprises can join in and research institutions can spend their time on research and not on administration. And I also feel that in general the countries are seeing this as an opportunity to contribute to the challenges we're having, not only economically but also in terms of climate, health, aging population, food and so on. So I think that we're off to a good start. It's a very important issue, and I hope that the Commissioner is satisfied with what she's heard so far in terms of the review. I would be if I were you.
I think the meeting organised by the Danish presidency comes at a crucial time in European history. I think we're living in very exciting, very challenging times from an economic point of view, and also looking at the future of Europe. And I think this meeting happens in a really historic week when the heads of state and government have taken specific decisions to deal with our economic crisis. And for the first time, we have research and innovation policy right at the heart of economic policy. It's now an economic policy, it's not a side issue anymore. It's an issue where the heads of state and government have committed themselves to supporting this particular policy area to create, as Minister Østergaard said, the growth, the competitiveness and the jobs. And that's what we need above all in Europe's economies. So I'm very pleased with the response from the ministers, from the Council of Ministers, from the European Parliament and from European industry to Horizon 2020. It's an honest attempt by the Commission to support research right across in a seamless way the innovation chain to the marketplace, dividing the funding from excellent science, supporting excellence in science, most particularly the European Research Council, supporting leadership in enterprise and competitiveness, and supporting global challenges, divided in these three pillars. They are three separate pillars, but they're mutually reinforcing pillars. And I think that the Member States have recognised that the Commission has fundamentally changed the way in which we support research and innovation, specifically because of this challenge of the economic crisis that we're going through. I look forward very much to working with Minister Østergaard over the next 6-month period, which I feel is crucial for the future of Europe and also for the future of support of research in Europe. And I know that he shares the beliefs that we have in the Commission, that we have a good programme. Perhaps we can make it better as we go through the discussion in the Council led by him and the discussion in the European Parliament. But at the end of the day, that we come through with a programme that we can be very proud of, and that the director of the AAAS from America, who was here today, Alan Leshner, said that it will be, he believes, if we succeed, it will be the best research programme in the world. I think that was a significant statement by somebody who is director of the AAAS.
And now the ministers will discuss with key stakeholders, from representatives from research and from industry in the three pillars: societal challenges, excellence and industrial leadership. And then tomorrow the negotiations will start with the informal council meeting, where the ministers will discuss, and we will focus on three areas: complementarity to other EU instruments and the stairways to excellence, as it's been dubbed, where how can we make sure that we develop all areas of Europe in terms of being excellent scientific communities. The question on simplification, how can we make it easier to access the common European research programs. And also on innovation, how do we bridge the gap from science communities to businesses in order to make sure that our knowledge transfers into jobs and growth. And those are the three areas that we will focus on in the first initial discussions tomorrow. Then we'll have two formal council meetings, one later in February and one in May. And hopefully by that time, we hope from the Danish presidency we will have an agreement on how the design and architecture of the Horizon 2020 program should be, and then we can move on during the Cypriotic presidency on discussing how the money should be distributed. So it's an important it's an important dossier, and it's also crucial that we get that agreement in May, because if we don't, there's a real risk that we'll have a gap between the current research program and the next one, which will mean that researchers that are dependent on funding from the common European research programs will be without funding for a period of time. So it's important that we make that agreement in May, and that's what I'll discuss with my colleagues today and tomorrow, so we can get a good start. And now we'll open for questions if there are anyone who would like to ask a question. Yes?
Commissioner, if I might ask you, is there a risk that with the fiscal compact falling into place, governments might be tempted to perhaps cut back on areas like research and development just to be absolutely sure that they don't go into the red with their public budgets?
I think that as the budget discussion, which is ongoing, it doesn't just involve research and innovation, it involves the structural funds, it involves the common agricultural policy, the budget of the EU as a whole. I think governments will have to look very carefully at the areas that they support, that they're not areas that don't create growth. So in other words, I think all governments will be focused on supporting and investing in areas that create growth, which in turn makes our economies in Europe more competitive, which in turn creates the jobs, because jobs are what Europe needs at the moment. We have huge levels of unemployment, particularly youth unemployment, and I think member states and governments have to look at that very carefully, and I believe that they're going to invest, as the Minister said, in the future, and the future is research and innovation.
Other questions? Writing? Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.